A clause. A clause is made up of a subject and a verb. A clause can also be defined as a simple sentence. Let's take this example. Imran went to Tower Bridge with his mum. The subject in this clause is Imran and the verb is went. Do you notice that Imran is also a noun? Yes, sometimes the subject can also be the noun. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Types of clauses. We have a main clause and a subordinate clause. A main clause is a complete idea. It makes sense on its own. For example, Imran visited Tower Bridge after he learned about it in history. The main clause there is Imran visited Tower Bridge. As you can see, that clause makes sense on its own. It's a complete idea. Because it's a clause, it has a subject, which is Imran, and a verb, which is visited. A subordinate clause, on the other hand, is not a complete idea. It doesn't make sense on its own. We'll take the same example. Imran visited Tower Bridge after he learnt about it in history. A subordinate clause there is after he learnt about it in history. As you can see, that needs a main clause to support it for it to make sense. Without the main clause, that subordinate clause doesn't make sense on its own. It is a clause because it has a subject, which is he, and a verb, which is learnt. Let's take a look at the sentence. Imran visited Tower Bridge after he learnt about it in history. We have already identified the main clause as Imran visited Tower Bridge and the subordinate clause as after he learned about it in history. You will notice that the subordinate clause starts with a subordinating conjunction, after. The word after is a subordinating conjunction. Other subordinate conjunctions include if, because, when, that. Of course, these are not the only subordinate conjunctions available to use. But for now, we will just try to remember these 4 subordinate conjunctions. To help us remember it, we can use the acronym IBWIT. I for if, B for because, W for when, T for that. And have a look at what an IBWIT looks like. Identify the main clause and subordinate clause in these sentences. Use the IBWIT to help